This is the Transcend in Life podcast with your host, J.M. Ryerson, taking you from fear to freedom.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to Transcend in Life. I'm really excited about today because if you're like most high-performing leaders, you're tired of being pulled in multiple directions with zero time left for yourself. As a certified Proctor Gallagher coach and 27-year military leader, Laura Noel helps high performers live empowered, fulfilling lives, all while achieving their highest potential. She helps leaders focus on what really matters so they can stop feeling out of control, become more effective with their time, and spend more time discovering doing what they love. Welcome to the show, Laura. How's it going?
It's going well. Thanks so much for having me.
Well, thank you for being here. Thank you for all your service in the military. 27 years. My goodness, that is pretty impressive.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. It flew by, trust me. I loved it.
And so you go from the military and now you are helping people live empowered, enriched, amazing lives. Is that a direct line that you went from the military straight into this? Tell me that story, because that's unique. I love hearing the story.
Oh, thank you. Well, it's funny because I had been in the service for 27 years, and throughout those 27 years, I knew, our careers in the military are not forever. So at some point we have to either separate or retire. And I knew that in 3 years, I was going to have to retire. But over the course of 27 years, I had utilized my tuition assistance and I had been going to college and I was collecting all of these degrees and certifications. I even thought about, I had multiple jobs within the service. One of my first ones was as a radar scope operator. And I remember at one point going, gosh, I wonder if I should go back and get my degree in that. So just in case, so I could be more marketable for that job. And I thought, why would I do that? I hated that. I didn't really hate it, but it wasn't my forte, right? It's not something I want to spend the rest of my life doing. And I was searching for my purpose for 27 years. In a nutshell, I just kept collecting degrees and certifications. I was successful in my career. I was in the top 1% of enlisted people. So that was an E9. And even fewer of us were women. So I did well in my career. I had a lot of things going for me. But one thing that I noticed was I was very goal driven, very goal oriented. And I always had one massive goal after the other. And from the outside looking in, it looked really impressive, like I had it going on. But on the inside, I just felt like something was lacking. I felt, kind of lonely in a lot of ways. And I just felt like that wasn't living up to my potential, but I didn't know what that was, what that purpose was. And I started getting into personal development, and I met my mentor, Bob Proctor, at a personal development seminar in California. And I had the courage to stand up in front of 400 or 500 people and say, how do you know when you found your purpose? I'm collecting all these degrees and certifications, and I have to retire from the military in 3 years. Like, I'm going to cling on for dear life until they boot me out. I'm exhausted. And Bob Proctor started asking me some questions about my service. What did I do? And at the time I was running a leadership school for first and second line supervisors. So I was kind of like, the equivalent would be a principal, but I was the commandant of that school. And he said, we have something I think you would be really great at. He just, was listening to what I was saying. And I really loved what he was sharing, and in the way that he was sharing it, about having unlimited potential and the power of our mind. And I said yes. He probably thought I was just nuts because I was like, yes. I wasn't just saying yes to giving him my contact information. I just knew intuitively that what he was saying, I wanted that, and that was the path for me. And I was saying yes to a whole lot more than that. And long story short, in 3 months, not 3 years, I submitted my retirement and got it approved. And within 6 months total, I had gone full time into being an entrepreneur, helping other people connect with their purpose. And I replaced my income, doing what I love.
Wow, that's that's remarkable to have all these accolades. You're collecting, degrees and all these amazing things. And then within 3 months, you're like, well, I am going to retire and this is my thing. How can you just know, when you say you just know, that I guess that's a feeling. I think everybody wants that feeling.
Yeah.
But was there any trepidation? I mean, was there any fear, or were you just like, nope, this is what I'm going to do no matter what, here we go?
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that. And I remember talking to a lot of my colleagues or people who have retired from the service before me and saying, how do you know when it's time to retire? Like everyone always says, you just know. And I'm like, how do you know? And I was having fear even before, years before, thinking about that day. And I would go to retirement ceremonies and I would cry for the people because they would be giving their farewell speech and they'd get choked up. And I'm like, oh, that's going to be me someday. How do you know? But I think looking back now, I was decisive. I did not have fear because we had to request retirement and you have to get it approved. So I hit send and I was like, oh my God. I didn't tell anyone that I called. Oh, honey, I just submitted my retirement. And I knew I was not fearful of it, honest to God, because I knew. But here's what is really apparent to me now that wasn't then. I knew, and because I made a decision. So I was thinking back about all of the degrees and certifications I was collecting. One of the last ones that I got, it was a master's degree, and then shortly after that was a yoga teacher certification. And after I got yoga teacher certified, I started teaching yoga at my work center after hours for anyone who wanted to come. It was free. And I started to notice that my colleagues and friends just mentally felt more clear, more calm, more focused. Some who talked about PTSD felt like they were back in control again. They felt better in their bodies. And I thought, this is a decision point. I said, gosh, if I could bottle this up, this yoga philosophy and mindset in a curriculum, I want to teach this to military people, to corporate, to people who ordinarily wouldn't gravitate toward yoga. I made a decision then. So when I made that decision and I went to this personal development seminar, I didn't know that I was going to stand up and ask that question. I mean, normally in front of people like that, even though I grew up and I had to speak in front of people and I grew up singing, I still am an introvert. And so my heart, if I was planning on asking a question, my heart would be, you'd see it, right? I wasn't planning on it, but when Bob Proctor started talking, it was like somebody lit a light under my fanny, and I was like, whoa, how do you know when you found your purpose? It was like I was guided by something else within me that pushed me to act. I knew what I wanted, finally. I wanted a curriculum that helped people in the way that I was helping and to get this out to the masses. And when I got clear on what I wanted, I got really focused and clear when I saw it, that I needed to take action. And that's what happened. I took action in that moment. So when Bob, posed, hey, let's connect, let's talk, there was no question. I just did it. I jumped on it. I didn't overanalyze it. And when it came time to pushing the button to retire, it was a no-brainer for me.
Yeah, it's almost like there was a premonition when you're doing the yoga, and there's obviously some introspection when you're doing that. You're really, you're quieting your mind. And then Bob sounds like he put a thing to it. He put a label or a real idea behind it. But my question is, more importantly, is what made you choose to go to that personal development? Because so many of these breakthroughs happen at these amazing personal development, whatever course you go to.
Yeah.
What I'm curious, going back in your mind back then, what made you decide to go to that?
Well, personal development is just a part of my DNA. It's what I do. And so it's been a part of my process in my life every day, but I go to events. I've been going to personal development events and making the concerted effort to go to them and really unplug for a week or so at a time, every year at least, since 2013. So this particular course was something that was planned a year in advance. But what's interesting is, and this can get kind of woo-woo, but we talk about being in harmony with universal laws, right? There's laws of physics that we understand to a certain degree, although we don't understand them in their entirety, but we know that gravity works. And if we're not going to test out gravity by jumping off of a building to see if we can fly, we know that it works, but we don't have to understand all the intricacies. But the same is true with universal laws. There's laws that govern the way we live. Now, we're not going to be, the law of attraction, the law of vibration, the law of polarity. These are examples of universal laws. But when we're trusting our intuition and we're allowing that to guide us, when we're clear on a vision, I want to find my purpose. What's my purpose? That was a common question that I was asking. And I was following my curiosity to try different things to see what would stick, what really touched my heart. So I think a lot of those things, including this class that I met Bob Proctor at, these things were put in motion because of my past thinking and my past curiosities and my past, internal gut instinct that was guiding me. Check this out. Or, what's, guiding my curiosity. I think when we are curious about things, that's our inner wisdom trying to guide us. And we just have to learn how to trust that more. And not only trust that more, but take the action without overanalyzing it. So staying in our heart and making those decisions that's in alignment with what our heart is telling us versus, wait a minute, let me think about that more. Do I really have time to do that? Do I have the money? How am I going to make that work? And then we talk ourselves out of it. And then we miss an opportunity to connect with our truth.
Yeah, you've talked about the inner voice, and what you're saying is, look, I'm trusting this inner voice, and then I move. You're not sitting there going, well, what about this? What about that? How do you coach people to do that? Because I say it all the time, our inner dialogue, sometimes it's a jerk. I'm like, hey, be quiet in there. But that inner, like, you knew in deep in your soul, like, this is what I want to do. I'm just going to move. And it's obviously worked out incredibly well for you. How can you help guide people to continue to do that?
Yeah. Well, first is getting them to take a step back and get tuned in. I think you had mentioned earlier about taking that pause for yourself to think and to get connected with your thoughts and or to meditate or have quiet time. We have become human doings, and we are, we're actually human beings. Newsflash. And we get pulled in multiple different directions with different priorities, other people's priorities, work priorities, things that we put on ourselves, things that we think we should do, we ought to do. And we don't take the time to think. And it's so important to, first and foremost, carve out the time. I say first thing in the morning or before you go to bed. That's when your mind is the most relaxed. You're not in a kind of a resistant thought, and you're not battling yourself throughout the day, especially in the morning when you wake up fresh. You don't have time to really get into the emails, but take that time to get quiet yourself. That's first and foremost. But when you have an idea, when you get clear on what you want, or you get a flash of inspiration in the screen of your mind, when you get an inclination to act, that's your intuition guiding you. And so I teach people, one, to recognize what's happening and that it's happening in the first place. And two, even though it may not make perfect sense, and even though, especially though, it may be a bit scary taking that step and having faith, take the step anyway, because staying still will keep yielding the same results that you're getting year after year after year. It's Einstein said something to the effect of, we can't solve our problems using the same thinking we used when we created them. And so we want to get out of our old habitual way of thinking. And so part of that is using some willpower nope, I'm making this concerted effort to do something I normally don't do. And I'm going to trust my intuition and I'm going to act, even though I normally wouldn't do that. I like to overanalyze things. Know in your conscious mind that you're going to do that, and then see what happens, and do it for little things first, and then build on it. So that's where we would start.
That's cool. And I love that. And so you talk about breaking free from the imposter syndrome, which I think everybody at some point when they start doing something new, they feel that that's a real thing. How do you break free from that? How do you continue to thrive and really provide the world the best that you can do by breaking free of the imposter syndrome?
Well, you're going to notice a theme in everything that I say, and every answer is it always starts with what you want. You have to have a clear vision for what you want. You have to have a goal. If you don't have a goal, then you're just floundering. Your life is happening to you instead of happening for you. So that foundation is getting clear on what you want. Then, the imposter syndrome, when you are doing something that is new, your mind is designed to keep you comfortable. So your mind doesn't know when you're stretching and growing that that's good stress. It just feels the stress. And so when you're doing something that's new, your mind is going to play tricks on you to bring you back to your comfort zone. And it's interesting. Maxwell Maltz wrote the book Psycho-Cybernetics, and he likened your self-image to that of a cybernetic mechanism. So the autopilot on an aircraft, if you're going from New York to Paris and the autopilot is engaged and the plane starts to deviate, the plane will slowly but surely bring that plane back on course. You won't even know it's happening. Same with a thermostat in your house. You turn it up or you turn the air conditioning up and you bring the temperature down to 68 degrees, but it's 100 outside, and then you open all the doors and windows. Well, that thermostat is going to work extra hard to maintain the temperature in the house. So the thermostat controls the temperature of your home, like your self-image controls the temperature of your life. So your self-image is that cybernetic mechanism. So when you're stretching and growing, pursuing a goal that you've never done before, your self-image is going to start to, in sneaky ways, pull you back to home base. You just have to be consciously aware that it's happening and consciously make the decision of what you want to achieve and who you want to become as you achieve this goal, and start to ingrain that in your mind and in your subconscious mind through repetition. So then that becomes a part of your self-image, and you start to, through attrition, starve out that old version of yourself. Not all of the old version of yourself, I want to say, because there's some parts of you and all of us that are great. There's parts of us that got us where we are today. But those same pieces of us and our self-image that got us where we are today, some of them will keep us stuck where we are.
So when the fear did come up, like you were talking about 3 years before your retirement, and you thinking about the future kind of gave you anxiety, but then in the moment you're like, I didn't even tell my husband, I literally sent in the papers. But when fear does strike, is it that clarity that really drives you past any of that? And like you're saying, the attrition of the old and the becoming the greatest version of myself, is that what overcomes fear for you? Is that your process?
Absolutely. If you don't have a goal and a vision, that fear is going, when your cybernetic mechanism kicks in to pull you back to the couch eating potato chips, right? You're not going to fight it. Oh, well, I didn't really want it anyway. Who am I to do this? You'll believe the hype, the old BS that you've been carrying on with for years. So if you don't have a beautiful vision or a beautiful goal, it's easy. These beliefs that you have about yourself, your self-image, your paradigm or programs, your deep-rooted beliefs about yourself and the world around you, you've had those beliefs since you were a baby. So anything that's gone on around you as you were growing up in your family, that you heard, that you saw, people, the way they dealt with money, the way they dealt with goals, supporting one another, not supporting one another. Those beliefs and those fears that maybe your parents had or your grandparents have, if you really examine some of the beliefs you have, you'll see that a lot of them have carried over into your life. So they've been with you for a long time. So you've got to have something that's bigger than your fear that you're striving for. Otherwise, this part of you, that DNA, that cybernetic mechanism, it's going to take over, and it's going to happen in such subtle ways that you don't notice it in the moment, because we're all programmed to operate the way we do. Most of our behavior is habitual. We're on autopilot. You're not going to notice it until you're like, dang, I said I was going to do this 3 months ago, and here I am. What the heck? What the what? Right? You don't even notice it. And then you beat yourself up, and then you reinforce those old BS beliefs, and that's how it happens. So you have to have a vision first.
Yeah, it is incredible how many of the hardwires that were put into us before we ever actually even had a long-term memory, and are literally, like you said, those beliefs, they're dictating what we're doing. You've mentioned, I'm trying to get to some tangible things. So you've mentioned yoga, you've mentioned being quiet. Are there some other things people got, like, is there journaling? Is there, is there other things that you're like, man, I wish everybody would do this for themselves?
Yeah, I have some non-negotiable habits that are key. First and foremost is, let's talk about the morning. If you just did this would have a huge impact on your life. Take 20 minutes in the morning, maybe 15 minutes to quiet your mind and think about what you want, and then journal about things that come to your imagination while you're meditating, while you're in a relaxed state, and journal about those things, your dreams, your aspirations. If there were no obstacles, what would you want? If you could not fail, what would you do? Who would you become? And just allow your imagination, start exercising this mental muscle of your imagination. Everything is created twice. There's no exception. No exception. First in your mind, always in your imagination, and then in physical form. It's just when life is happening around us, we're doing this unconsciously. So this is why this non-negotiable morning practice is so important, because now you're consciously learning to create. So use your imagination to think about what you want, and ask yourself, maybe every day, ask yourself an empowering question. How can I serve? What do I want? What is my purpose? And then just be open to receiving. And maybe when you're practicing in the morning, you have one or two ideas that come to you. Maybe a week goes by and you're like, oh, nothing's coming. But later in the day, when you're relaxed, maybe going for a walk or cooking dinner or chopping broccoli, you're in a relaxed state of mind and you're like, oh, I have an epiphany. So always have a notebook with you to write things down, but start with journaling, because you're bringing to life what's inside of you. And journaling also causes thinking. Sometimes when we write and I have nothing to say, even if you wrote, I have nothing to say, I have nothing to say, I have nothing, and then you allow your pen to just roll, you'll be surprised at what comes out. So a daily study or a daily practice of being quiet for 15 minutes and asking an inspired question, and then journaling, even if it's just for like 15 minutes of journaling, it's fine. So that's where I would start.
I love that. It's interesting if people are like, I have nothing to say. Sit quietly for 30 seconds and watch how many thoughts go through your brain. It's like one of the biggest challenges I have. My mom is she's a busybody. Like when you talked about human doings, my mom is a doer, 100%. So when I try and get her to meditate, she's like, James, I just can't quiet the mind. I'm like, Mom, that's perfect. You don't have to do it right. I just want you to do the practice. So I love what you said there. Is there other tips you have for those that are like, I just can't meditate, I can't sit still? Are there other things that you have them work on so they can quiet the mind, whether that's meditation or just sitting in silence?
Go for a walk by yourself, and I would say music is energy and vibration. So maybe even listen to some instrumental music that's relaxing while you're walking. That's fine too, where you're not getting absorbed into the lyrics and creating images from the lyrics. But I know from personal experience, when I used to run a lot outside and I would have headphones on, my imagination would go crazy. I would have the best ideas. So if that works for you, do that. And then, if you have your phone with you, have like a voice memo app on the phone, and just the thing, you've got to get it out, the ideas out. If you don't, you're going to forget them. And it's interesting because Napoleon Hill talks about in his book, Think and Grow Rich. He's talking about when ideas come to you, they will flash on the screen of your mind like a flash of inspiration, and failure to act on those ideas will be the death of those ideas. So often we don't listen to our intuition. It's that little voice that says, bring the umbrella, it's going to rain, and we ignore it and then we get poured on. So when you're in those moments of quiet, whether you're sitting and meditating or you're going for a walk, you've got to get those ideas out of your mind and onto paper, onto your voice memo app, so that you can act on them.
It's so important. So let's go win, for instance, for me, 21 years ago, I was 21 years old, and I literally wrote Let's Go Win with a very similar, what the logo is today. It was all in black and white. But I forgot about it. I quite literally forgot about it. And I pulled this out not long ago out of my garage. And I'm like, holy shit. I was thinking about this for 20 years. Had I not written that down, I totally, it was in there, but it took so long to get out. So something you and I talked about, and something I geek out on, love, is the reticular activating system. What is that? So people, maybe you can explain it better, because I use this a lot in business, but I'm curious how you apply that in your everyday life.
Yeah. And so I think I said earlier, maybe it was when we were talking earlier, but most thought leaders agree we become our thoughts. And if you're not into personal development, you might think, oh, that's woo-woo, that's kind of soft, but it's not. And there's science behind it. We become what we think about. And we have a part of our brain called the reticular activating system. And I'm just kind of explaining this in a really simple way, but you have a part of this reticular activating system, or RAS, R-A-S, is a filter for your mind. And so I've heard and read anywhere from, we take in 11 million pieces of information every minute into our mind, into our brain, through our 5 senses. So what, like, it's temperature on our skin, or something we see, something we hear, taste, touch. So we take in this information, but consciously, we're only able to process about 40 pieces of information. So that's not a lot. So we're being bombarded by information. If you think about it, we have more information at our fingertips now, but a lot of ways it's like we're doing less. We have so much information at our fingertips, and we're more confused than ever, right? So the RAS is taking in this information, and it's binary in nature. So it's looking for a match for what it already knows. So when this information, it's happening very quickly. Familiar, unfamiliar, familiar, unfamiliar. And it's a good thing, because if you are in a crowded room and it's very noisy and you hear something that sounds like your name being shouted out, you can key in on it very easily. You can sift through the noise immediately. Another example is if you never notice the red BMWs on the road, and then you decide you want one, and then you're like, oh my God, there's another one, and there's one there, and there's one in this parking lot, there's 2 over there. You see them everywhere. It's not that they weren't there in the first place, it's just your RAS was looking for a match for what it already knows, or what you're telling it is important to you. So when you make a decision that you want to reach a goal, or you make a decision that you want the red BMW, you're telling your brain that that's important to you. So it's filtering out information that's in alignment with what you want. So the RAS can trip you up too, because it's looking for a match for what it already knows and what it believes is true. Now we have a whole belief system in our subconscious mind. It's our paradigm. And our paradigm is a multitude of beliefs that are stored there that have been passed down from generation to generation. Like I'd mentioned earlier, some of those beliefs, like I remember my mom would always say, eat in case you get hungry later. Like some of some of those beliefs that we hang on to, or money doesn't grow on trees, or you have to work hard, you know, to be successful. Those are all BS beliefs, by the way, but we believe them and we don't question them, and they become a part of our operating system, our DNA. And so then our RAS is looking for information to justify those beliefs. We're looking for evidence, and we're collecting evidence to support I'm not good enough. See, I messed that up. I'm not good enough. I'm not cut out for this, right? But that's why it's so important to focus and consciously choose every morning what, you know, getting in harmony with what you want by journaling about it, writing about it, making a decision on a goal that you're going to achieve, so that you collect new evidence that supports what you want and the person you want to become. So this is science.
Well, it is science, and a couple things that are so interesting. Whenever I explain RAS, I always use a red car as well. I don't know why it's always red. Whether it's a Corvette or a Honda Accord, it's always red. Very odd. I'll have to look into that. But we have something we have got to tackle, and that is we got to stop saying it's woo-woo, because who really cares? It works.
Yep.
Superstitions, I guess, would be woo-woo. But guess what? If you believe it, it's what it is. And I did it. Literally, I wrote a blog this morning, and I used the word woo-woo. I'm on a new mission. Laura, we are not going to say it anymore. No more.
I'm with you. You know what's interesting, though, is I'm in the midst of doctoral work. And so I'm a candidate for leadership and organizational psychology. And everything that we're talking about is backed by all of that evidence. So my mission, and I'm with you on that, is to bridge the gap and show people that, you know, it's, you know, as Einstein says, it's not philosophy, it's physics. It's real. And it works. And the key is, like you mentioned, it's, if you believe it, then it's real. You know, if you believe it, everything is energy. And think about Einstein. Everything is energy. That's all there is to it. Match the frequency of the reality you want, and you cannot help but get that reality. This is not philosophy. This is physics. So everything's energy. This chair that I'm sitting in, made up of molecules vibrating at a high frequency. Our bodies, made up of molecules vibrating at a high frequency, although we can't see it. But our thoughts are also energy. Case in point, if you're talking with a bunch of friends and somebody that's in a bad mood walks in the room, even if you don't understand this, you can feel the energy, and you know you don't want to be around that person. And the same is true when you meet somebody, or somebody's speaking and they're so gregarious and so full of life, you gravitate toward them. It's energy. That energy is pulling you in. You're attracting each other. And so this energy, our thoughts being energy, and being a frequency, your goals and your vision for what you want is also a frequency. And so our role as human beings is, one, to make a decision to reach that goal that puts us in harmony, in frequency with that goal. But our job is to stay in harmony with that goal. And that's where the trouble is for a lot of people, because we don't believe, we feel like we have to, when I see it, I'll believe it. But this is a paradigm shift. You've got to believe it first in order to see it manifest in your life. And it starts with your thoughts.
It certainly does. And I want to almost put a label on the warning here, like a warning on the label, excuse me, to say, hey, what she just said about the energy is so true. And you know it. You can feel people's energy. And when you really open your eyes and you accept that, you will definitely be like, didn't feel it. It just happened to me so big the other night. I was like, I didn't even want to be around this person because it was just toxic. You could feel it. It didn't feel good. So I removed myself, and I've learned to do that, but that took a long time. You've talked about some books, and it's one of my favorite questions because I love to read. What are 2-3 of the most impactful books you've ever read that have really shaped your thinking and allowed you to really become who you are today?
Definitely. I have two of them here, and I study them all the time. That's why they're on my desk. Well, one I mentioned was Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And my mentor being Bob Proctor, you don't see him without his Think and Grow Rich book. He'll even say, look, none of these ideas I'm sharing with you are my own. I've just been a really good student. And he's been carrying that book around with him since 1961, since it was given to him. And that's the philosophy that I teach, is the teaching through that. But another one is Working with the Law by Raymond Hollowell. And so it gets more deep into universal laws that we just touched on today. And then another one that I love, and I study these, I use these often when I'm coaching people, it's The Power of Awareness by Neville Goddard. Read these. You could take one little chapter and just study that one little chapter every day for a month or 2 months or 3 months to just really get it into your bones. And it's life changing. I mean, one of the things that I'm doing with clients is I talked about morning habits. Well, I'm doing a 30-day challenge with us. Even in my Facebook group, the free group, is Neville Goddard talks about the pruning shears of revision. So at the end of the day, having a mental do-over for things that you didn't like. We're basically learning to play the mind game with our subconscious mind. And we're on day 4, and it's already shifting how everyone feels when we're setting our goals and our schedules for the following day as well. So it's pretty powerful.
Yeah, and that repetition is so important because people think, oh, okay, I thought that. No, the new science is saying 66 days to create a new habit. Whether that's true or not, that's a hard one for me to, really say, okay, if I missed day 55, now I got to start over. I don't believe that to be the case, but the rewiring that you're doing is so important. What does freedom mean to you? It's kind of a deep question, but it's one of my favorites. And I love asking to get that visceral response of what freedom means to people.
Freedom means to me doing exactly what I want, living exactly in the way that I want, and being my authentic self, doing what I love. Freedom to me is doing this work that I love that doesn't even feel like work, and connecting with people and doing the things that are most important to me. And it's all connected. It's work-life fluidity.
That's amazing. I love it. So you talked about vision. You've talked about, having those goals. What is on the horizon for Laura? What do you have coming up? I know you're not working because you're truly, you just love it. You're working, but without feeling that way. What does the future hold for you?
I want to continue my work. One of the things that I'm really passionate about, and actually came out of that seminar where I met Bob Proctor in 2016, I got really involved with the Unstoppable Foundation. I became aware of how many people in the world don't even have access to clean water. And at that moment, it was a punch in the gut, and I swore that I would do something about it. So my husband and I built a village in Africa, providing people with clean water, education, nutrition, medical care, and then job training. And we collectively came together with a group of people to fund the first ever school of mechanics in a college in the Masai Mara region of Kenya. So I want to continue that work, but my goal is to be able to fund at least 3 villages a year, which is going to take a lot of speaking engagements and work, and just bringing people into the fold with this. That's my vision. And personally, we're looking, when travel is lifted, we're looking at buying a place overseas. So we want to visit a couple of places first, but that's what I mean about freedom, is that work-life fluidity, is we can do that. We can live from wherever. And that's what I love about this.
Well, I know you'll do it because you've already put it out there in the universe. So whether you're wherever you choose to live, in Europe or Australia or Africa, for all I know, maybe where you build some of these things, you'll end up. If people wanted to connect with you online, where's the best place to do that?
Well, I have a page just for your listeners. So it's stretchintosuccess.com/transcend in life. And what you'll find on that page is a free download. So it's 6 mindset changing techniques for a more fulfilled life. So you can download that PDF and get started. I have frequently free webinars and workshops that get more intensive over the course of a few days. So there's a link there that you can register for any of those. And then there's also an opportunity for you to connect on a call with me, and that's free, just a 15-minute consultation to see if you're looking for coaching and support, what that might look like, and if it's a good fit for you.
That's amazing, guys. We'll put that in the show notes as well, so check it out for sure. She definitely brings a lot of value, givers gain. She clearly believes in that. How many free things she just said right there. I so appreciate who you are, what you do, the energy you bring. I want to be around you. That's that really good feeling when even through Zoom, and I so appreciate you being on today.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. Oh my God, the time has just gone by. Really wonderful talking with you. And I always love talking with like-minded people. And I appreciate the energy that you're putting out into the world. And you're making a tremendous impact as well. So thank you.
I appreciate that. All right, you guys, until next time, you can also go on to Let's Go Win. Check out, there's a free work-life assessment. Use it, just like Laura said with hers. These things help. They really do. I do mine once a month. I want you guys to get the value out of that as well. And until next time, transcend in life. Thank you so much for listening. If this content is delivering value to you, please make sure to subscribe, rate, and review us. That helps us build this community, and that is what we are all about. Building this community as big as we can, helping as many people as we can, and deliver as much value as possible. Be sure to head over to transcendinlifepodcast.com for information on my coaching courses, and make sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn at Let's Go Win 365. Let's go win and transcend in life.
This is the Transcend in Life podcast with your host, J.M. Ryerson, taking you from fear to freedom.